Good afternoon. It's got to look a little weird because of the way the camera faces here, but that's okay. Okay, so now you've got a president who totally ignores the emoluments clause. He's endorsing that worthless shitbag that everybody hates. Pretty much everybody hates him. Endorsing his goddamn electric cars. Now, here's the cool thing. People aren't buying them as much. The stock's gone way down. And it is our fervent hope that this guy will be out of business soon. Yeah, we don't want him around. Right, we want him gone. And we want Trump gone. Well, that'll be a little tougher. You know, really, the 25th Amendment should come in because this guy is, talk about Trump derangement syndrome. Trump is deranged. Enough on that. So here's why I wanted to do this. I want to talk about the Democratic Party. And I want to talk about what the Democrats do and don't do. Okay? So Democrats were in office 2 years. Now, this is the most that they ever get, usually, is 2 years. I mean, when Obama was in, they had 100 days, and then, they had the election, and boom, it was all good. And then what happened was, because people's little whims, because they don't understand, you dumb fucks, don't understand the way government works. Right. If you're in the House, you have to have a majority to pass your bills. Okay? A majority. Simple majority. In the Senate, you can do that now, but used to be you had to have 60 votes or 60 or 2/3 majority. Used to be. Not so much anymore. So, but if you don't have a majority in both houses, you ain't going to get much done. Okay? And then if you lose it halfway through the president's term, you're kind of screwed. I mean, yeah. See, we were lucky with Biden because through most of Biden's term had Democrats doing the right thing. And they did a lot of good stuff. They passed the CHIPS Act. They passed the infrastructure bill. They did a lot of good stuff. Okay? But they're not getting credit for any of it. I mean, they brought the economy from these things, the Inflation Reduction Act, they brought the economy back around. The economy was really rocking, man. It was 45,000 when the orange pus bag walked back into the White House. And now it's 42, maybe 43. It's come back a little bit, but it went way down. Well, I don't judge the health of the economy by the stock market because what the Fed is telling us and other economic analysts are telling us is that GDP could shrink by 2.8%. Shrink. That's a negative GDP. That's not a positive 2.8. And of course, all this cutting and all this nonsense, this shotgun approach to cleaning up abuse, fraud, and waste that's abuse and fraud and waste, what they're doing. Because it's all a plan to dismantle the federal government mechanism and replace it with oligarchy, with privatization. Like you're going to kill the Department of Education. Well, it does a lot of cool stuff, especially for poor folks and poor kids. Yeah, it does. It does a lot of cool stuff for them. And where is that? Almost all red states. So red states are really going to get hurt. They're the ones that are going to feel the pain of Trump and Musk, right? They're the one. Now the economy. Let's talk about the economy again. Okay. So Trump wants to view the economy like one of his failed businesses. And right now, it's looking like a business that could fail. Well, the economy, is made up primarily of businesses, doing business with consumers and businesses. That's what it is. However, here's the problem with that. Trump thinks that he can run our country like a business. That really infuriates me. I don't like that. This is not a business. I don't want the country to run like a business. It's not a business. It's not somewhere you can go in and not pay people and kick people out and hope that it runs well. Because look at what he's done with his businesses. All the bankruptcies he had. Look at the fraud case in New York with the foundation. They can never have another foundation or nonprofit in New York again, the Trump family. They're out. They're done. Okay, what does that tell you? And look at all the rest of what is there? Trump steaks, there was Trump vodka, there was Trump University. Talk about a scam. That was the biggest scam ever. Trump University. Oh, okay. So here's a guy, and people are stupid, okay? They don't read. They don't know how the government works. The government is not a business. It's not meant to run like a business. It's meant to regulate, when necessary, businesses. Right. It's meant to employ people in giving government services to the majority of the population. Now, if you're really rich in the upper 5%, you don't need any of that, I know. But guess what? The rest of us are not going to get there, man. We're not going to get there. We're not going to be in that upper echelon. Probably ever. Oh, well, maybe, 3% of us will become, or 11% of it. We have a 1 in 11 chance of becoming a millionaire. Well, that's not very good, is it? No. And billionaire, 0.003% chance. So it's not going to happen for you, folks. Some of you, a really teeny tiny percentage. Okay, so if you take that number times 330 million people, you're going to get how many people? So billionaires come here, they bring their garbage, because let's face it, these guys, these people built their companies on the backs of consumers and workers. They didn't give back, except to workers and stockholders and things like that. They didn't give back, right? They're not giving back. They're taking. Like, Anand Giridharadas wrote in his book, Winner Take All. Yeah, they're not giving back. And charity is a joke, a gigantic joke. So this is what's going on, folks. We're getting grifted. And now, finally, some folks are waking up and they finally figured out that tariffs are a tax on us on things we buy. So if the Chinese piece of whatever that I bought last week, if I buy it in 2 months, when these tariffs go into effect, I'm going to pay quite a bit more for it. So if it's 20% more, or 25% with the tariff, well, the company that bought that merchandise and is reselling it paid 25% more. They're going to pass at least that much on to us, maybe 50%. So if I bought an item for $10, I'm going to at least pay $12.50, probably $15 for it now. Okay, so that doesn't bother you because it's only $5. Okay. This is going to happen across the board. Okay? Now, let's look at why we don't have that many native manufacturing industries anymore. Why? Well, it wasn't the fault of the government, except for regulating those businesses to stay here. Oh, and the GOP would never have that. You can't regulate a business and control them that way. No, you have to give them enough breaks to where they want to stay. Well, a lot of them are already getting a lot of breaks, especially automakers. So automakers move significant portions of their manufacturing processes out of the country, and then they import those finished products to use in their assembly process usually. Now, when it comes to trucks, for example, I think it's GM's trucks are all assembled in Mexico. No, they're not made here. Why? Why did all this happen? It's because those companies didn't want to pay the taxes and they didn't want to pay labor. That's right. That's why that happened. It didn't happen because the government was at fault. The government didn't have anything to do with it. They're not in those industries. What the government didn't do was make it so they couldn't move. Well, how would you do that? Well, you'd have to tariff the shit out of their products. Well, who gets hurt by that? We do. So when I want to go buy a truck that's worth $12,000 and now I got to pay $25,000 for it, I hope you get it. People figured this out, that the tariffs hurt the consumer. They hurt the importer. They don't hurt Trump. The corporations, they're going to buy and sell and make their profit, on what they buy and sell, whether it's imported or whether they make it. So these companies coming back, okay, so Trump's on the air going, 90,000 factories have closed. Yeah, that's true. How much is it going to cost to rebuild and retool those factories? Is it going to be worth it? Is the offset going to go against what we're tariffing people for, or tariffing importers for? Is that going to? No, it's not going to work. The only thing that does work is like what happened in chips, and it's been happening quite a while, all along. Yeah, it's been happening all along. Yeah, it's the companies that do this. It's not the government. It's the companies. And then when people in the government, like Democrats and progressive Democrats, come in and they want to regulate everything, right, on these companies that are doing all this outsourcing, oh boy, that's just so wrong. Well, what are you going to do to get them to move back here? So like chips. Okay, so right here in Phoenix, Arizona, a manufacturer that makes chips came over. They built a factory. It took like 2-3 years to build the factory. They built the factory. Now they're making chips, and people are getting employed. It's great. Well, so Trump and these idiots, they don't like it because the people that own the business, okay, they are from maybe the Taiwan, and I think in this case. Well, I don't know if that, I think that company's on the market. I think it's on the Dow Jones. I think you can buy stock. So Americans get a chance to invest in it if they want to. And you know what? So few Americans invest in the stock market. Like 83% of the stocks are owned by small concerns, like 10% of everybody, or 17% own all the stocks, most of the stocks, 83% of the stocks. That's what it is. Well, how does that now? Okay, so some of us who work for companies have a 401k, and we can invest in certain stocks in that, and we get a return on it, and it's kind of nice. I mean, you can build it up to, depending upon the kind of money you make, you can build it up pretty good and have a nice, chunk when you want to retire, or if you want to pull it and invest in something once you get past the age of 65. Okay. However, turning Social Security into a goddamn 401k? No! I don't want a hedge fund bastard taking care of my money I've been paying in since I was 16 years old. Right, I'm 71. I paid into Social Security since I was 16 years old. And now what's happening? Oh, you got this muskrat, this filthy creature that is probably even too filthy to be in swamp water. He comes in and calls it the greatest Ponzi scheme. Okay, muskrat, how is it a Ponzi scheme? Can you show us the numbers and why it's a Ponzi scheme? Okay, so there's a couple thousand people getting checks who are over 100 years old, so it says, and they're not over 100 years old. Now, the Social Security people have made mistakes in people's birthdays. Okay, they did on mine. They were a year later than when I was born. Okay, and so I had to straighten them out on it. Well, now it's corrected, but it doesn't show up that way. Okay, so a lot of this was error. Okay, and that is abuse, and that needs to be fixed. And that's what Doge, if they were worth a shit, rather than just using a shotgun cutting approach, would go in and find all this stuff and correct it. And then you wouldn't have that waste, right? Well, probably most of these, I guarantee you, there's probably some people, and I think a very small number, that are getting old Fred Smith's Social Security check, and Fred died 20 years ago. Yeah, there's a couple that are getting that. Well, that can be found and erased, but not going in and cutting all these people, just cutting all these people. No, that doesn't work. And let me tell you, you start cutting seniors like me, Social Security, there's going to be some mad bastards, some really mad bastards. Now, I'm not one of them, but some of those people, they might be pretty well armed, and they might come after you guys in the executive branch that are doing this. And the greatest thing that's happening right now, Musk is losing his ass. He's losing his ass on his cars. And then you got, Trump's calling him a patriot. He's not a patriot. He's an enemy of the American people. He's an enemy. He's an enemy of us. Okay, just like all these other guys. Like, I've given them all nicknames. The defense secretary, I call him hog shit. The Secretary of State, I call him the Rube. And the guy, who's this other guy? I forget his name. I think his name is Basant. I call him Pissant. and I got names for all of them. Uh, they've all, I give it, RFK, worm eaten brain. Okay. That's all these people there. I don't see one good one in the whole bunch. And I looked so I could edify Trump at all. No, Trump is running a scam. He is doing an economic coup. Now they're talking about all this war. You got to go and declare war on Iran. Well, why is Iran working on developing a nuclear weapon? Who caused that? Trump caused that when he went in and killed the deal that we had with Iran that Obama made. Yeah. And then they got all up in arms because we gave Iran back their money. We were holding a lot of their money and we gave it back because it was their money. That's what you do. Same thing with Afghanistan. We gave the money. It was their money. It was their money. Okay, just got a breaking news. All the Tesla trucks have been recalled that have just recently been outputted because of a panel problem. Good. The more gremlins at Tesla, the more gremlins at SpaceX. Well, I don't want anybody going up in space on one of those rockets, but the more gremlins at all of Musk's businesses, the better. The better he gets wrecked and becomes lesser. In other words, down the list of billionaires, the better. The sooner, the better. We want the bastard out. We want him gone. And we need Trump gone. We need Vance gone. We need to get a majority back in the House and the Senate. Now, back to the Democrats. Democrats have been judged unfairly. Yeah, they have been a little weak on fighting back. But there have been all along people like Jamie Raskin in the House, AOC, Bernie Sanders in the Senate, Chris Murphy in the Senate, a few other people have been fighting back the whole time. But do they get recognition for that? No. And, the GOP, the Democrats are a bunch of weak. They're demon rats and all these names. And meanwhile, the GOP is flooding the zone with lies and propaganda, and they're screwing us. The GOP has been proven to be 3 times more corrupt than the DNC, than the Democratic Party. Now, I am not a big fan of the Democratic Party, and I haven't been since 1968. That's right, I'm that old. No, I was 15? I was 15 then, right? But I was reading current events. I was a student of history then. And let me tell you something. What the Democrats did at the convention in Chicago in 1968 was inexcusable. And Richard Daley, the old king of mayoral graft, yeah. So, and then Lyndon Johnson and the Vietnam War, and even JFK going into the war in the first place, okay? The war was a debacle, and it took Nixon 4 years to get us the hell out of Vietnam. And there was no victory in Vietnam. Vietnam wanted to be unified for the most part, and Ho Chi Minh did the job after we left. Right. And Vietnam's been better off ever since. Why were we there? We were there to get bauxite ore and rubber. That's why we were there. We were there to exploit Vietnam's resources, like most places. Now, the book that Ward Churchill wrote way back that got him chastised, I think it's called The Justice of Roosting Chickens. Well, yeah, that's a great book because he goes over the entire history of COINTELPRO. He goes over us from the time we were colonies to all the economic and military exploitations that we pulled off as a country. Now, if you so-called GOPers, you maggots, are all into this isolationist crap, but there's a lot of these people, they want us to be the conqueror. They want us to annex Canada. They want us to annex Greenland. And who knows whatever the hell else. And it's not going to work. That doesn't work. We're not going to do that. Canada is never going to be a part of the United States. They're our most valued trading partner, and we're shitting on them like a dog on a fresh cut lawn. Yeah. That's and Greenland doesn't want to be part of it. They want to be Greenlanders. They want to be an independent country called Greenland. Right? Right. But Trump does all of this. Number one, he knows it's not going to happen. Number two, he does this as a distraction and to try to turn the people against Canada, for example. Oh, Canada has been ripping us off, $200 billion a year. Well, those are not subsidies. Those are trade deficits. And that's companies here buying products from Canada in an excess that creates a $200 billion a year, whenever that comes from, what figure, deficit. That's a trade deficit. We have a trade deficit with Mexico. I think it's like $500 billion. Well, you know what? You're not going to change any of that. And you're not going to pull all those industries back in here. You're not anytime soon. It's going to take years and years to do that, because you got to come in, you got to reopen the factories, you got to retool them, you got to get them up to snuff, and then you're going to have to fight with the unions. And the unions are getting stronger, and they're going to fight, and they're going to stick it in you, man. They're going to tell you to leave the Vaseline by the bedside. Well, maybe not. Maybe they're going to say, no, just leave that out. Yeah, and they should. They should, because that's the whole reason these pricks left anyway, is because shareholders got to get their dividends, one. Two, their labor is cutting in to the amount of those dividends. Three, it is less expensive to produce outside the country, even with an import tariff, which, because of what's it called, MECA or whatever they call it, whatever they changed NAFTA into. And then Trump's knocking that trade deal. And who's the guy who engineered it? He did. And these cretins are getting on Fox News, and they're calling Trump a great negotiator. He couldn't negotiate a stuck turd out of the butthole of a sick dog, right? No, he's not a good negotiator. No, he's a failure. He's failed at multiple businesses and product launches and all that other stuff. No. And the country, first and foremost, the country is not a business, and it should not be run as a business. And we shouldn't be getting rid of agencies that give people essential services that they need. I'll tell you this, I've had all the great health insurance totally paid for by the employer, before, with low co-pays and all that kind of great stuff. And Medicare is the best health insurance I ever had, with my supplement and my drug program. I pay nothing for my drug program, and now I got a $2,000 ceiling on drugs, which I've already reached because I have to use a couple of biological specialty drugs, right? Yeah. Can you dig that? Best health, and they want to take it away. Oh, it's just so full of waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah. Well, who's the big waste, fraud, and abuser that's in the government? It's Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, who was involved in that big Medicaid scam down in Florida, who made out like a bandit. I forget how much he made. He made a lot of money. Well, there's your waste, fraud, and abuse. Rick Scott. I tell you, people of Florida, man, I feel bad for you guys. Especially like Cubans who came here, because they hate Fidel Castro and they hated communism, and they want to get away from it because he couldn't go and make huge profits and have it in their businesses and stuff, right? Well, okay, I'm for that. But then they come and they be Republicans because they think Republicans are good for small businesses. They're not. They're good for big businesses. They're good for hedge fund guys. They're good for those kind of creeps. Yeah, but they're not good for the small business. The Democrats are good for the small business. Now, this is not a wholesale endorsement of the Democrats. No, not at all. The Democratic Party is down to 29% approval after the great job compared to the GOP that they did in Biden's term. Come on, you guys, wake up and read. READ. Read, and you'll see what the actual facts are on this. And every time Republicans get in the last, 4 decades, they cause a recession. Yeah, they cause Nixon, big problems for Carter. And then Reagan comes in and screws things up even more. The only thing that trickled down in his economics was bullshit out of the corners of his mouth. Yeah, and then after that, you get old man Bush. He wasn't much better. At least he did call Reagan's crap voodoo economics, right? And then after that, you get Clinton. Clinton caused a budget surplus, but he sucked Newt Gingrich's butt way too much, right? they capitulated to the Republicans too much. Yeah, it gave us a budget surplus, but it also screwed a lot of things up, right? Okay, so then you get W. What a debacle W was. Got us into 2 wars, probably pumped, I think the estimates were about $6 trillion in debt for us, which I'm not a big fan of the whole debt and deficit thing. I think it's a big bunch of crap, mostly, and it's used as a propaganda tool by politicians. At any rate, so what does he do? He gets us into 2 wars. We didn't win. Well, you could say we won in Iraq. No, we didn't. We really didn't. You know, that was a debacle. Cost a lot of money, and you know, it got the wrong Muslims. Well, there's no good. I mean, the Sunnis are out of power, and the Shiites are in power, and then they're aligned with Iran, and people don't like that. And destroyed their country, killed 100,000 people at least, and destroyed their country. What kind of crap is that? They had the burn pits with uranium particles floating around in the air. And then you got Afghanistan, and the people didn't want us to kill off the Taliban, right? And we couldn't. We didn't get the cooperation needed, and they couldn't put together a good armed force. So Afghanistan's gone down the tubes, right? And so what do Republicans do about that? Well, they blame Biden for the withdrawal, right, of the troops, and blame him because equipment was left behind. Well, the equipment was outdated and a lot of it was broken. So that was it wasn't negligible, it was a big loss, but okay, it was what, $75 billion loss. Okay, well, they lose that much equipment. Yeah. And so then the 13 that got killed, that was a damn shame. But whose withdrawal plan did we use? We used Trump's. That was Trump's withdrawal plan. Now, Trump wouldn't have, he lies. He keeps telling, oh, no, that would have never happened if I was president. Yeah, Russia would never have invaded Ukraine. Meanwhile, now they're trying to do these peace negotiations. The only capitulation they got was from Ukraine, right? And I forget what that was. It was something, right? Not even worth mentioning because that was the only capitulation and negotiation they got. Putin, before he went to have his phone call with that orange pus bag, okay, he was late by an hour. And he was in a news conference laughing at Trump. He laughs at Trump. He knows that Trump is a useful idiot. And that's the way he actually treats him. If you go back and you look at the clips of the press conference after Helsinki, I think it was in 2017, Putin is sitting there with the biggest smug grin on his face you've ever seen. Yeah, because Putin knows that Trump is an idiot when it comes to foreign relations. And the only reason Trump is interested, there's 2 reasons. One is fear. He's afraid of Putin's nuclear arsenal. 2, he wants to get into Russia and exploit the resources that Putin's not going to let him do. 3, he wants to go in there and build hotels and resorts and all that kind of stuff, which Putin's not going to let him do without a huge chunk of it. He's going to have, Trump only cares about the branding. That's why he lied. And the other reason is for some reason, Trump's got a hair up his ass about the EU and Europe. Yeah. Meanwhile, what happened? Okay, so now he wants to reestablish this great economic relationship with a country that has an economy slightly larger than the state of Texas. Meanwhile, Russia has aligned themselves economically, trade-wise, more so with China. Russia's got oil. China needs oil. So Trump's whole thing with all this is it's stupid. And now you got Rubio has been quarreling with Musk. Now, I think that's pretty cool. But Rubio's going to bail. I'm going to give Rubio 6 more months. Now, if he lasts longer than that, I'm wrong, and I'll own it. But no, Rubio's going to bail. Some other guys are going to bail. But Hugshit, he needs to go, man. The Rube's going to go. Hugshit needs to go. Pissant, oh, boy. What a lying piece of dog shit he is. God, these guys. And that other bastard, Buttlick. Yeah, what's his name? Lutwick or whatever. I call him Buttlick. He's up there lying on TV, making endorsements. He made an endorsement for Tesla cars on national TV. That's a big fucking no-no. Sorry about the language, YouTube, but this is the way I roll. And I'll tell you what, people, you keep protesting. You get your asses out there and you keep going. And you protest at Tesla. You protest everywhere. This is all going wrong. You protest outside the White House. You need to get 100,000 people out there. And we're going to have to keep it up. We're going to have to keep it up for at least 2 more years. So this is what we're faced with. We have to fight, and that's the way we fight. And Democrats in the legislature, you guys need to get off your asses and fight like hell. There's too many goddamn millionaires in the Senate. That's for sure. And I kind of go along with old man Dingle from way back. He said we need to abolish the Senate and everything needs to be the House, and the House needs to be greatly expanded. So if we made representative seats, knocked them down to 250,000, 300,000, we could greatly expand the House. We could change things around so that the House represents the will of the people. And you know what? You need to get in the Supreme Court and kick these old corrupt dog turds out of there. Yeah, Alito, he needs to go. Clarence Thomas needs to go. The drunken abuser, he needs to go. Gorsuch, he's a total business sellout POS. He really needs to go too. So those are the things that need to happen. And that's how we need to change. But the only way we're going to do, we got to fight. We got to vote. And you guys that are attacking your Democratic representatives, attack them properly. Don't go, what are you going to do going forward? What can you do? How can you help us? Well, you got to remember one thing. The reason things are upside down is because we don't have a majority in the House and the Senate. Without that, your Democrats can't get anything done, and you don't need to blame them for it because a big percentage of you voted them in. That's why. And it's whose responsibility is it to change it? You. And you got to vote in the right Democrats. You can't vote in a bunch of conservative blue dog Democrats that kiss corporate ass. No, you got to vote in progressives. You got to vote in the people. You got to vote in populists. You got to vote in the people that are going to help us. Until you do that, we got nothing. And blaming them for that, well, of course, yeah, so they ran weak campaigns and they got voted out because, they talked about the wrong shit, a lot of them. No, forget all those issues. Talk about how you're going to fix the economy, how you're going to make people's lives better, how you're going to work to reduce prices. That's how you do that. You don't do it talking about, gay and LGBTQ rights and trans and all of that. No, you don't do that. And even though they have their rights, we'll preserve their rights. But it doesn't need to be an upfront issue. And when somebody calls you woke, said, yeah, we woke up and you guys left a toilet that's unflushed economically. Okay, and you need to push back and say, here's what we did. Here's what we're going to do. This is what people want, and this is why they're mad. And I don't blame them for being mad, but I do blame them for voting wrong.